I feel a bit sorry for William and Kate, really, being put in this position. Demands for reparations, and a whole narrative here that Meghan and Harry have helped to create. I mean, of that, there is no doubt at all. But I tell you what gets me down about this. It is the feeling amongst so many commentators in the UK that somehow slavery is a uniquely British thing. We were the only people in the world,
wait for it,
that ever did it. White British people enslaved black people and sent them across to the Caribbean and the Americas. Now look, none of us today think what happened those centuries back was a good thing. We even don't think public executions are a good thing. There are so many things that happened years ago that we wouldn't, approve of in any way at all. But the thought we should pay reparations, well, hold on a minute.
Okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
Because there was something called the Barbary Pirates. Now, I know that any young people watching this won't know, because they won't have been taught this at all through our education system. But a recent report from Ohio University in America suggests that up to 1.25 million people from Sicily right up the west coast of Spain and France and into Cornwall, getting back to your previous debate that you had before the break, Wales, Ireland, 1.25 million white slaves were taken by North Africans from countries that we now know as Algeria and Libya. And by the way, folks, it wasn't just the Brits doing slave trade. The rest of Europe were doing slave trade. So let's get a sense of perspective. And what's really brought all this on for me isn't just the royal visit to Jamaica. It's Tulse Hill in South London.
Oh,
now, I was at school at
nice.
A mile up the road. They're going to rename Tulse Hill. They're going to cancel Tulse Hill. They're going to get rid of dozens of road names. I've got to be honest with you. I've known Tulse Hill for over 50 years. I didn't know. I mean, ignorant.
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
I didn't even know it was based on a guy called Sir William Tulse, who made his money, out of the slave trade. But we can't go on pretending this is a purely British, a purely white thing. We need some sense of perspective and balance in this argument. And above all, what we should say is whatever was wrong in the past, it was the British that first realised what a moral wrong it was, abolished it,
fact,
and then spent decades on the high seas driving out the slave trade at the cost of thousands of Royal Navy sailors' lives. So please, folks, can we have a sense of perspective? And if reparations
wait for it,
are to be paid, well, Libya, Egypt, Algeria, you owe us a huge amount of money. And the Cornish will be very, very pleased. They won't even need Gordon Ramsay anymore.
But it would never end. I mean, it was interesting, Nigel. Dominic Samuels on our Superstar panel tonight. She is a Brit with Jamaican heritage. And she said her concern about this, and I found it fascinating, actually, is that the current government of Jamaica is wanting to wall...
Okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
...paper all of the social problems, all of the other issues in their society today by focusing on this historic issue of reparations. And I think she's right, because actually the Jamaican Prime Minister should be thinking a bit more about how to turn his country around.
Yes, I mean, if the Jamaican Prime Minister wants to continue with this narrative of what he sees as being historic wrongs, and they probably are in many ways, that is giving victimhood status to an entire country.
Yeah.
And that of itself is a very negative emotion. Tell someone they're a victim and they'll feel down. Tell someone they're a champion and they can overcome things and succeed in the future. And you know what? They might just do very, very well. So I find the whole thing a
wait for it,
negative narrative. But there's something bigger going on here, and it's not being commented on, Dan, but I'm going to mention it now very briefly, and we'll come back to it in the weeks to come. Take Barbados. Barbados recently got rid of the Queen as head of state. Why? Well, China is the answer. China are doing their best through loans, money and investments to break the British link with the Commonwealth. It's happening. We've seen it with the Chagos Islands and that row that's going on there. We've seen it in Barbados. Jamaica, I don't think China's the influence there, but there is a big attempt out there to downgrade the English-speaking peoples of the world and this remarkable alliance. And there are lots and lots of people in Jamaica whose granddads flew in Bomber Command in World War II. There is an amazing link between our nations, and it's being poisoned by many, many people. And that is a terrible shame.
Very good point. Very good point. Nigel, I just want to come back to this idea that's been propagated by the left-wing media, by BLM in particular, that the British royal family is racist. And yes, I did get a lot of criticism today because I blamed Meghan Markle for some of this, not for all of it, but for some of it. And I stand by that, Nigel, because her interview with Oprah Winfrey is being used by some of the main activists for reparations and a republic in Jamaica right now. But what I found particularly unsavoury, Nigel, was the fact that the BLM movement tried to use this picture of William and Kate greeting fans behind a wire fence when Raheem Sterling had done exactly the same thing a few moments earlier and no one mentioned it.
Are you serious?
Yeah, well, look, you know, the contradictions, the untruths of Meghan Markle know no bounds. And the fact that Prince Harry himself is happy for his family to suffer some of the injustice that comes from this, the injustice that comes from this, is so wrong. But the truth of it is, as you can see, Kate and Wills are becoming global megastars. One dares to say Kate more than Wills.
That doesn't make sense.
Somewhat reminiscent of what was going on 40 years ago with his father and with Diana. But I think we should all be very pleased and very proud that out there on the world stage, we've got a couple like this doing us such great credit. And, you know, with the Queen now being effectively confined to barracks in Windsor, we need to recognise that the royal family are the most important part of soft power that we have in this world. The Commonwealth now has within it 2.3 billion people. Add to that over 300 Americans who seem to love the royal family even more than we do, and you realise just how important the monarchy is to us, our presence, our soft power in the world, and especially in post-Brexit Britain, it matters even more. And that makes, frankly, what Meghan and Harry have done nothing but totally despicable.
I agree, and I think they will lose. I think this narrative that the British royal family is racist has been pushed by the far left extremists in the US media, but actually you're completely right. Even loads of Republicans, Nigel, in Jamaica absolutely adored William and Kate. There are about 60 protesters outside the British High Commission. It's just the fact that the media who are in
Okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
the tank for Harry and Meghan in the US are trying to create a particular narrative. And I think they will lose, but we have to expose it.
Well, look, you know, the media, the mainstream media, and that
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
includes a very large chunk of the British media, have always been ashamed of this country, of its standing, of its history, of its status, of its royal family, of its individuality, of its uniqueness. It's why they wanted us all to be parcelled and packaged up into a wonderful new European project run by bureaucrats we couldn't vote for, couldn't remove, and who were generally kicked out political failures for their own countries, such as Belgium. So look, there's nothing surprising in any of this. And I mean, look at Baileys. The truth of it is, the Baileys trip from the couple this week was a huge success. Half a dozen people turn up with placards and protest, and you would have thought the whole of Baileys were in uproar. Uproar at the fact that the royal family had visited. And in Barbados, who got rid of the Queen as head of state, without a referendum, did it without reference to anybody, and opinion polls show actually a majority of Barbadians
That doesn't make sense.
wish that hadn't happened. So never be surprised that mainstream media wants to destroy our image, our reputation, our legacy, and our future. Do you know what? They don't like the country. They're embarrassed by us. And George Orwell got it so right in the late 1940s when he said, there's a certain type of Englishman who would rather steal from the poor box in church on a Sunday morning than stand for the national anthem. They're still there. They still exist. But the Brexit vote proved that the silent majority are sound, decent, upright, honest, patriotic people. And I believe in increasing numbers, they're going to become fans of GB News too.
A peacemaker and wanted to try to calm things down, really. I mean, remember that this was the last engagement before Prince Archie was born. It was the last engagement before their household split between Harry and Meghan's and William and Catherine's. So it really shows her intention to try to mend fences between them. And this was another event that emphasised that Harry and Meghan would be on the second row behind William and Catherine. And look at Meghan there, seated next to Prince Andrew. Looking back, she'd probably think that is a reflection of the status she was given. Wow, I remember this set of photos from the time. And now I look back on them, they're even worse than I thought then. Now, these pictures were taken at a polo match. It was a charity polo match that William and Harry were both playing in. It was a few months after the birth of baby Archie.
Okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
It's at the Guards Club in Windsor Great Park. And I think the idea at the time was to, it was seen as a bit of an opportunity to show how Catherine and Meghan were friendly and were getting on. But
That doesn't make sense.
my goodness, when you look at it, the body language was just terrible. The whole set of photographs that I saw, there's no interaction whatsoever between the two women. I mean, Meghan is clutching baby Archie to a chest, almost as a sort of shield. Catherine is looking in a different direction the entire time, keeping an eye on her own children, no doubt. But even though the pictures were taken over the course of,
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
quite a period, there's no engagement between the women at all. And it's worth remembering the context of the photograph as well, that by this time, the two households had split.
Are you serious?
They'd moved in their different directions, and they were setting up their separate courts, essentially. Remember that in the royal family, their job is to make small talk. It's to be able to interact with
That doesn't make sense.
anyone, any member of public. They always have something nice to say. But here you've got them in private at this event with clearly nothing to say to each other. It's a photograph that really does speak volumes.
Fact.
According to the book Finding Freedom, which takes a very pro-Sussexer stance, this event was an example of the cordial but distant rapport between Meghan and Catherine, and how the women hadn't become friends. To me, even cordial seems a bit too optimistic.
Stop it. Get some help.
The complete set of photos has none where the pair are looking at each other. It seemed like a day to forget all round, as even Harry, who loves playing polo, looked annoyed as he, Meghan and Archie walked away.
What?
In July 2019, Catherine very magnanimously extended the invitation again to Meghan to join her at the tennis. But this year she brought her sister Pippa along, perhaps as a buffer.
So that was a f***ing lie.
Remember, this is Catherine's favourite event of the year. But once again, her body language suggests that it's anything but. She's stiff and uncomfortable as she arrives, as though this is purely duty, not pleasure.
Okay.
And you can only wonder if that's the prospect of spending the day with someone who makes her feel uncomfortable. Look at the expression on Catherine's face. You know, she looks very strained. And she's really, gripping her handbag as if it's some sort of shield to protect her. It does not look like a relaxed afternoon enjoying the tennis at all, but very much like an engagement that she has to carry out because it's her duty.
Fact.
We're back at the Commonwealth Day service, this time in 2020, and it seems that the royals have largely given up on trying to pretend that all is well. We haven't seen any pictures of the couples together since the previous November at the Remembrance Day events at the Cenotaph. Other than a strained hello when they arrived, there isn't really any interaction between William and Catherine and Harry and Meghan at this event. We can see how Prince Edward and his wife Sophie, were almost acting as a buffer between the two couples.
Are you serious?
Here we have Edward and Sophie, chatting in a friendly way to William and Catherine in front of them, but Harry and Meghan again seated on the row behind look very uncomfortable. They're not engaging at all. And my goodness, look at that stiff expression on Meghan's face. It's as if, she's got that stiff jaw. She's sort of thinking, I've got to get through this. Boring. And Harry sort of giving her concerned glances. Are you okay, Meghan? It seems like it really was a day that they just wanted to grin and bear. Harry and Meghan have been to Africa and Canada as they start to explore the possibility of life outside the royal family. So you might remember there'd been a real row about the order of service before the event, that it had been written and printed and there was no mention of Harry and Meghan at all in the Queen's procession. And in order to diffuse the row, Prince William agreed that he and Catherine wouldn't take part in that procession either. Robert Lacey writes in his book Battle of the Brothers, when Harry heard that he and Meghan were to be so graphically shunted aside
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
on this final appearance, he was furious. The subservience of a spare, one of the basic reasons for this very sad parting of the ways, could not have been more strikingly illustrated. In Finding Freedom, it confirms that Harry and Meghan were disappointed. The decision